pencil in, I guess, right?
Well,
or that was the foxhole one.
That was the foxhole
Yeah.
one.
All right. First, I want to say welcome to all our viewers out there tonight. This is December 29th. I had to look, man. Oh, the year's almost over. I'm Tom Medlin, W5KUB, and this is Amateur Radio Roundtable. It's a show about ham radio. And if you're listening out there on shortwave tonight on 7490 kilohertz, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you in the world? Send us a signal report to Tom at W5KUB.com, Tom at W5KUB.com. We'd love to hear from you. And our shortwave broadcast is at a different time than our live show. But if you'd like to join our live show and you have internet access, you can always join us on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That would be 0200 UTC Wednesdays, and just go to YouTube to W5KUB. You can get us there, or if you want to still go to our website, W5KUB.com, you can go there, click the video and the chat button, and you'll be in there with us. So we've been making some changes to the program. You guys have probably noticed we've got a different chat room now. We're focusing more on YouTube than we were our own private branding, and we need you to hit the subscribe button. You know, we've always branded this as W5KUB and not as a YouTube channel, so we never picked up the subscribers. So hey, if you're in here tonight and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, please. Hit the like button about 4 or 5 times. And if you will, hit that little bell next to the subscribe, and what that will do is notify you whenever we come live. And sometimes we have a lot of things that happen during the week, and we have a lot of fun. You notice we didn't play any music tonight. Trying something different. It seems like a lot of people were interested in behind the scenes, what was going on here. So we may do that like that. The next few times we'll have to see, but we're going to have to be real careful and not say anything bad, if you know what I mean. All right, let's see what else is going on. Oh, the 40-meter net tonight. Band conditions are kind of long. I mean, Europe was coming in mostly, a lot of QRM, but we had quite a few people check in the 40-meter net. And also, I've got a couple people that want to join us and call a DMR net. So our show has a DMR talk group, 31693. We're probably going to start having a DMR net also on Tuesdays. So we have a good show tonight. We got some great things lined up tonight. So just stick with us. It's going to be fast moving, fast paced. So let's just go around the room real quick and just see who's here tonight and just say hello to them. We won't start your segment yet, but this is just a welcome and hello. So let's go first to, looks like Riley's here. Riley, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. It's cold in Gettysburg, and I'm not coming to you from the radio room because I have 3 pieces of vintage equipment down there torn down to rebuild, so it was a little cluttered down there. So I moved upstairs.
Well, that's okay. We're just glad to have you, Riley. So. And we hope you're going to come back again. I was afraid you were mad at us for a while because you kind of disappeared on us. But you've been pretty busy, I think.
I wasn't avoiding it. I was just evading warrants.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, We're so glad to have you tonight. Let's jump on around the room here, and all I got to do is, boy, I need more hands to flip all these buttons. And I've lost my mouse. Excuse me. I've lost my mouse. It was on a different PC. It was on the wrong PC. Okay, the mouse has come back. All right. So Riley, let me get Riley's name off because the next person is not Riley. There we go. Who else is out there? Who wants to jump in here? How about you, Alan? You there?
I am here. I'm unmuted, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
hey.
Man.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
You're looking good there. Look at that shirt.
Yeah, is that a Christmas present?
Channel on the back there.
Oh, man.
So, Christmas present.
I didn't see the back.
Philly, New Jersey. Can you see the back? It's got my YouTube channel on it there.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got to get me a couple of those, man.
That was one of my themed Christmas presents. The other one was a picture of my workbench back there into a puzzle. So that's what I'm going to be doing New Year's Eve.
Oh, yeah. That's cool, man. Cool. Hey, I like it. All right. Hey, what are you going to be talking about tonight in Tech Tips?
Yeah, Tech Tips is a short one, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but just a quick intro to what is a SDR, software-defined radio.
Oh, man. All right. And are we going to get into any remote SDRs or maybe like the dongles, or what are you going to talk about?
I'm just going to talk about, in general terms, what's an SDR compared to a radio that's not an SDR.
Okay.
We can talk about dongles and things like that, but not tonight.
Okay. Very good. Okay. All right. Katie, are you there?
I am here.
Well, how'd your day go today, Katie?
It was fine. It was my first day back at work because I took yesterday off. You know, last week on the show, I was starting to feel kind of scratchy in my throat. And I woke up the next morning, I was miserable sick, and my boss was like, "You need to go get a COVID test." And thankfully, it turned out negative, and got some antibiotics and steroids. And I tell you what, those are wonderful things. But so it made us well enough that we could still go see the grandbabies and kids for Christmas. So
all right, you're gonna have to talk.
Awesome.
You're talking away from the microphone.
Darn it.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah, that's right. We'll have to teach you how to use the microphone.
I think we need some new cabling for our mixer or something.
But that sounds really good. That sounds really good. So
happy to be back. And I don't know that the cord is long enough, but Dwayne's Christmas present is behind. Let me see.
What has he got there?
Well, our son makes wooden lighted call sign boxes.
Classy.
Cool.
I like that.
Okay.
Very
So
nice.
that was his Christmas present.
Very nice.
It looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And Alan, I really like that T-shirt. That looks
I
pretty
do
cool.
too. Man, everybody's got such good things. This is neat.
And Bill's got a ponytail going on, so I mean, Rich's hair is still getting longer. It's been growing for a year nonstop, I think. So
Yeah.
we're all catching up with each other. A bunch of hippies on the show.
All right. Hey, let's go over to Rich real quick. Hey, Rich, how you doing up here in New Jersey?
Hi there. We're doing well and staying not too cold. We had a little bit of snow last week, beginning of the week, about 10 inches. But that all went away very quickly when it warmed up to 60 degrees. So
you got about the same temperature we've got down here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Today it was about, I think we topped out around 40, and it's supposed to warm up through the week again, but rain later.
It's down in the 20s already again.
Oh, man. All right. Hey, guys, just a quick announcement. We have hit the number of concurrent viewers that we hit last week as a record. So concurrent, we've already hit. We had 165 people concurrently for Katie. That means everybody's watching at the same time. You know? Okay. All right. Where were we? Oh, Rich. Okay. Hey, man. Thanks a lot for being with us, Rich. You're coming up here in just a second. And let's see. Bill Brown. Bill, I think you missed the last week or two with us. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing fine. And it got down to the 20s here in Alabama, but people start buying everything off the shelf thinking that there was a dusting of snow. We actually had almost a white Christmas in Alabama. We had a dusting of snow on Christmas Eve. So, and 1 inch of snow down here will shut the place down for about a week. So.
Yeah, something happened here. Hey, something happened, and we've got the wrong picture.
You've got me. Oh,
Now we
you
got a good close up. Something crazy went on here, man. Okay, well, we're back.
yeah,
now.
that was pretty weird.
Well,
And I haven't. This is the 1 year anniversary of my last haircut. Because I read it, and I was thinking about getting a haircut until I read an article about a couple that went and got a haircut before Thanksgiving, and they both died of COVID. So
oh man.
I may have to go a few more months here.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's okay. We're not going to complain. At some point, we may ask you to get a haircut if you want to stay on here, but for right now, we're gonna let it fly because of the circumstances. How about Glenn? Glenn, you out there?
Yeah, how's it going, everybody?
Doing pretty good. Now,
See, I have my demon child here.
that's right, and they're behaving just really well. Look,
Yeah. Well, I was talking about needing a haircut too, but after Bill's story, no way. But Bill, it's interesting. The last time it snowed in Christmas Eve in Alabama, or at least in Birmingham, was 1985. And my first show cat was named after that snow, Christmas snow.
Glenn, I didn't know you liked cats. Maybe we can swap recipes sometime.
Yeah, these are champion show Maine Coons.
Okay.
This one right here was ranked best in the world at the last show we went to a year and a half ago.
And what kind are they?
Maine Coons. State
Wow.
of Maine, and coon like raccoon.
I never knew a cat being a Maine Coon. I mean, I knew what coons were. We hunt them down here, but Maine
These
Coon.
that hunt you. She's 3 feet 4 inches long from tip of nose to tip of tail.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's definitely the boss of the house.
And her sister's bigger. But this is the one that has to photobomb the show. But anyway, as far as here, I didn't get anything for Christmas. The cat's got more than me. And
Oh man, I would have sent you something down there. I'm sorry.
oh, that's all right. I've got on the air and been playing with the radio, and I can't wait for the Ritty Roundup coming up this weekend to play with the new Ritty reader.
Play with your new reader, huh? Okay.
Yeah, it's all finished, all done.
That's
I'm
cool.
actually listening here for W1AW's broadcast to switch over to teletype and try to copy some of that for it.
Well, all right. Well, Katie, why don't you come in here, Katie? And why don't you talk with Rich and talk to us about CQ this week or this month?
That sounds good. Well, it is the end of December, and we have our historical activities that on the last Tuesday of the month, we always have our friend Rich Moseson, W2VU from CQ Magazine, talking about what's been going on and what's coming up in our next issue. And but before we dive into that, you just finished up with your celebratory year of your 75th anniversary of CQ. Make sure you're unmuted. Get you unmuted before we start talking. So again, a happy anniversary to CQ Magazine, and there were some fabulous issues this year. And do you have any few special memories that stand out while you were putting all these different issues together this year, Rich?
Well, I guess the favorite part for me was digging into the history of the magazine and of what has gone on ham radio over the last 75 years to put together the historical pieces early on in the year. And then as we went through the year, in each issue we had one or two CQ classic pieces, which were reprints of articles from past issues. And we're going to continue that. And that was, it was really amazing to look back and see how advanced hams were even 75 years ago. I mean, our first issue, we had an article in there about microwaves and, very early on transistors and things like that. So what has been most fascinating to me has been how totally ahead of their time our writers and readers have been throughout our history. And
That's neat. Yeah, we take for granted that, as technology grows, that, everything was so old fashioned back then. But I mean, ham radio folks have always been on the cutting edge of all kinds of new things. And I think that was a good point. And I know during the year, as we've talked about some of the issues and features that you dug up from the past, it was always interesting to hear what people were thinking about and working on and all the different projects. And, it's just different year, but same interest, just maybe some of the technology has changed, but always something to learn. I think that's probably one of the things that people really love about CQ. And Joe K0NEB, who is in the chat tonight and joins us. Joe, we need to get you back on the show. We haven't had you do a kit feature recently.
I think he'll probably be with us in a week or so. He's got some more kits. In fact, hey, let me just say this real quick. I think Rich might mention him tonight.
That's what I was going to say. I thought he said something in the chat room, and I thought you might want to share that.
Yeah.
And so why don't you tell us what's coming up in our next issue?
All right. Well, we'll start at the beginning, which means, in this case, starting with Joe. I've only got a black and white copy of our cover here, but that's Joe's house and Joe's roof and Joe's tower. As he's got some friends putting up a new antenna for him, and he writes all about that in his column.
Wait, let me just put it up in color. There we go.
Okay, You got it in color? All right, there you go.
How's
You're
that?
a step ahead of me there.
All right.
So, that's great. So Joe is our star for the month, and although he's not in the picture because he took the picture. So
Yeah.
we get started on the inside of the magazine, of course, with coverage of the collapse of the radio telescope at Arecibo and the ham radio connections there. So hope that they'll be able to rebuild soon and continue doing amazing radio science there. We do a record-setting sea expedition with record-setting in quotes, and you have to read the article to find out why, by Dennis Shapiro, W1UF, about a trip that was on his bucket list for a long time that he finally got to make and get on the air. We got a fair number of technical articles this month, maybe a few more than usual. Mike Charteris down in Australia, VK4QS, has a great piece on refurbishing a Collins R390A URR series receiver. Now, he's got a lot of history with this too. This was a Cold War military receiver and saw quite a bit of action back in the 50s. And so he shares the history of the radio and the story behind it before getting into the details of refurbishing it to put it back on the air today. It's a really nice mix of history and technology there. We've got the results of the 2020 CQ Worldwide VHF contest, of course, which had a lot of activity. All of our contests this past year have had record-setting activity because so many people have been home and therefore have decided to get on the air as a way of maintaining their sanity. So not only our contests, leagues contests, everybody's contests have all seen record levels of activity this year. And we hope to maintain that even after people can head out again and do other things. We've got the rules for this year's WPX contest. There are some changes, new category and a couple of other things. So I encourage anyone who's planning to operate in the WPX contest starting this year to carefully look at those rules to see about the new changes. One of them is a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but not directly. It's not temporary. It's permanent, called multi-transmitter distributed, which provides for people to operate from multiple locations basically as a team. from multiple station locations, so that you can work together as a multi-op group, but still maintain your social distancing and either operate from your home station or a remote station or something else like that. So it's just another way to encourage more people to be more active on the air.
Great.
We've got a basic intro to balance and what they are, how they work, and how to make one. This is a topic that is ripe for review every 5 or 10 years. Excuse me a second, my voice is going away here. What happens when you talk too much? Got an article from WA3EOQ on a digital to analog hardware converter. And we have a lot of D to A converters for software. But this is on doing it in hardware. He got a new Elecraft K3S transceiver and still wanted to use his older Icom AT500 tuner for automatic band switching, except that one has an analog output, one has digital output. So he came up with a board to let them talk to each other, and it's a very good article. Speaking of digital, we've got K5PA and WB2REM returning with another article in their Untethered series. This is on untethering your memories and how to remotely operate Icom message memories. And that's another cool article. They've got either a 4-channel or an 8-channel switch to run your memories, your memory buffers. Our new MCOM editor, Stan Broadway in 8BHL, has an article titled How to Avoid the Torture of Digital Net Check-ins. So that's should be good reading for people who are signing in to digital nets. Joe K0NEB talks about not only his new antennas, but logistics for installing new antennas and accessories, and a whole bunch of kits that he discovered along the way. That a lot of, when you buy an antenna and accessories, you suddenly find yourself with a whole bunch of kits that have to be put together. Speaking of back to basics, as we were with balance and stuff, Don Rotolo into IRZ, our digital editor, takes us back to basics with PSK31 and Digipan, which are still going strong despite the onslaught of the FTs. DX editor Bob Schenk in 200 takes us with, actually he has a guest editor who's joining him, Bodhi Santoso YE1AR, writing about the 7H9H IOTA expedition to Habe Island, Indonesia. Really, really interesting piece there on these islands and their people and the operation, of course. You know, that's something that we always try to get into in our de-expedition stories is about the place that you're going and the people who are there and the history of the place. Not just, we went, we set up, we operated, we went home. Every de-expedition has that kind of story. What's different in each place is the place itself and the people you encounter there. So we try to focus on that as well as the ham radio part of it.
Those are usually my favorite part of the stories too. 'Cause you know, it's a lot of times these people are going off to somewhere to operate, a place in the world I've never even heard of. So then I'm going on Google, I'm like, where the heck is that? And finding out more. So, but then you get to read the story of what they went through to get there, and then what they did on the island. Sometimes they're doing volunteer work as part of the process of being there, and yeah, it's super cool. So it's, I mean, obviously we love the ham side of it, but you know, being able to read the story about all of the other aspects of the de-expedition is always a good. Can't think of the word I want, but I always enjoy those articles. I'll leave it at that.
Well, you know, it's a good reminder that ham radio is a people hobby.
Right.
And we use technology, but our basic goal is to make contact with other people. And sometimes we do it on the radio, sometimes we do it in person as part of doing it on the radio. And that kind of thing helps to remember that. Our contesting column we'll wrap up with, again, I mentioned this a little earlier, the Tim N3QE has a titled Fall Contest Season Begins with Record Levels of Activity, and he's gone all the way back through March and November. Time that he wrote this, the CQ Worldwide CW contest had not been held yet, so he didn't have numbers on that, but they were record-breaking numbers as well, over 9,000 logs submitted, same as with the single sideband contest, and just kind of blown away. And he has a picture of himself here operating at W3LPL in a properly socially distanced manner. So that's a look at some of what's in the magazine this month. I did not get through every article, so there's even more to come when you get your January issue. Digital edition should be right on time on January 1st, and there's a lot of good stuff in there, and hope everybody has a great new year. Happy, healthy in particular. Stay safe out there, and we wish you all the best. And of course, if you want to subscribe and read the magazine every month, you can go to www.cq-amateur-radio.com and click on the subscribe button. And we've usually got some sort of special going on. I haven't been there in a couple of days, so I'm not sure what it is right now, but we've got something happening.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Rich. And sounds like another awesome issue coming up. And don't forget, everybody, just go ahead and sign up and subscribe. And if for some reason you don't have a calendar yet for 2021, I'm sure you guys still have some of those famous calendars. Those are more than 12 months even, with some great
Absolutely.
photos.
That's right. They're 15-month calendars. Yep. And they show let us showcase the breadth of amateur radio and all the fun people and places where our antennas sprout up.
Right. Perfect. Well, thank you. And I guess we will see you again at the end of January. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. And man, the end of the month comes so quick now. I mean, Katie, I don't know about you, but it's like we're seeing Rich like every week. You know?
Well, sometimes it does feel that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were seeing him a couple weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But we don't mind. You can come every week if you wanted to.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much, man.
All right.
All right,
everybody.
All right. Well, now we got to peep into CQ next month. All right, everybody stand by. We'll be right back in a minute. I'm real pleased with what I'm seeing here. Looks like we've had 580 people join us tonight. We've got 183 people right now concurrently watching, so we're doing good. Hit the subscribe button, please. What it does, it helps us rank our channel, and it helps other people find us. So hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be back in just a second. Ham for the holidays. Icom's new ID52A and the IC705 give hours of fun and enjoyment working your favorite bands this holiday season. Icom's newest handheld amateur radio is the ID52A. Larger radio, larger color display, and a louder audio. This VHF-UHF digital receiver is much more than a replacement for the ID51A. It's also a new way of communicating. The multifunction D-band D-Star transceiver supports DR mode for easy access to local repeaters based on internal GPS information. The ID52A also has Bluetooth for audio and data control. And for the first time in the amateur radio industry, you can now send photos from a connected Android device. Other features include wideband receiver with guaranteed range of 144 to 148 and 440 to 450 megahertz, integrated GPS including grid square location, a micro USB for data transfer, programming, and charge, and it's IPX7 waterproof. The ID52A is a perfect companion to the IC705. Both use compatible batteries and headsets. And you can also use the same Android app for D-Star operation. The IC705 is a perfect sidekick for hams that like to enjoy both the indoors and outdoors. It's the perfect QRP companion and covers HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at about just 2 pounds. It has a 4.3-inch touch screen with live band scope and waterfall, and you get 5 watts with the BP272, and you get 10 watts with the 13.8 volt DC. It has a micro USB connector, Bluetooth, and WLAN, integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger, and it comes with a speaker microphone standard. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the optional LC192 backpack. It has a special compartment for all of your accessories. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on Icom radios.
LDG Electronics provides state-of-the-art antenna tuners for every amateur need. From QRP to QRO, fixed stations, portable and remote, an LDG tuner will match your radio to your antenna using our lightning-fast, proprietary tuning algorithms. LDG is a family-owned and operated company dedicated to bringing innovative, quality products to the amateur market. All LDG products carry a full 2-year warranty that is fully transferable. Support is only a phone call or email away. We're always here to help you. Visit us on the web at ldgelectronics.com.
All right, and we are back. And boy, hey, so far it's been a fun show. We got a lot more fun stuff for you. Just a couple quick announcements. If you're out there listening on international shortwave on 7490, send us an email. Let us know where you are and how you're hearing us. Send it to tom@w5kub.com. tom@w5kub.com. This show is all about ham radio, amateur radio. If you're listening out there and you wonder what's going on, stick around. You might, if you're interested. You know, many of us got started in ham radio by being shortwave listeners. That was a big part, I think, back 50, 60 years ago when many of us started. So it's a good starting place. It makes you kind of understand what shortwave is. So if you'd like to watch this show, you can tune into the show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on W5KUB.com, or you can just go to YouTube and type in W5KUB. Also, all of our shows recorded. I think we have something like 800 shows that are recorded. You can go back and look at any of these shows at any time that you want to. So our turnout is really good tonight. I would like to ask everybody out there, if you can, help us to build the viewer base out there. On Tuesday, send a tweet out, post it in Facebook, remind everybody about it, and we'll have a good time here. Hey, our next person, he's really not a guest. We signed him up, and he's been on the payroll now for about 4 years, and that's Riley Hollingsworth. And Riley is a ham, K4ZDH. But Riley was also he was a special counsel to the FCC for about 10 years, I think, and I'm sure Riley can fill us in on that. And I think he was the one responsible for keeping all of us straight. He was the one that would go out there and get you if you were doing bad. Now, you know, now he has retired from that, and he's with the ARRL. It's kind of a joint thing, ARRL FCC program called the Volunteer Monitor Program, and he's the head of that, and he's going to tell us a little about that tonight. And Riley, we have missed you. I know you've been very busy, but we're going to probably start trimming some of your payback if you don't come on here more often with us. So, hello, Riley. Welcome tonight.
Well, if you trim it back anymore, I'll owe you.
Well, that's
a lot of lost mail around here.
That's what we're trying to get to, actually.
Well, I guess you want to hear about the Volunteer Monitor Program.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man.
All right. Well, for the background and history of the program, I'm not going to bore you with that. If you want to know how we got to that from the OO program, you can go to the League's website and search Volunteer Monitor Program. I'm going to tell you about what we do and what the philosophy is. And I have one promise to you. If I leave you confused tonight, I promise you to leave you confused on a much higher level and about more important things than when the show started. So that's my commitment to you. We have about 165 volunteer monitors across the country, and we've had virtually no turnover in the 10 months or so that we've been in operation, and it's been about 10 months. We worked with the FCC regarding certain areas in which they wanted extra coverage because of their field office cutbacks and budget cutbacks. And in fact, the volunteer monitor program was suggested by the FCC in 2017 as a way to enhance amateur enforcement in view of some of their staff and budget reductions. The FCC promised full cooperation and expedited action in cases where we were getting no cooperation in our own enforcement efforts. And looking at the last quarterly report, which ended September, the total hours that the volunteer monitors spent on listening to HF was 6,000 hours, a little over 6,000 on VHF, UHF, and other frequencies. There were 60 incident reports, which means there were 60 problems that they found, but as it turns out, only about 10 of those are really serious problems. I mean, sometimes I'll get an incident report, say, for example, key clicks, and it happens to be a vintage radio net. We're not going to get into that. That's not the type of thing that degrades or debilitates or embarrasses amateur radio. So only about 10 or so were actionable. 8 of those we were able to, 10 or 20, I guess, 8 of those we were able to resolve informally. 2 of them went to the FCC. We sent out about 7 warnings, which seem to have worked, except on a couple of frequencies, one of which I'm listening to tonight. I have a small rig upstairs in which I do monitoring. We issued 15 good operator letters, and these are special letters to people who do an especially good job, whether it's running a net or just in a normal QSO or whatever. And it turns out 3 of them went to young licensee teenagers who hadn't been licensed too long. So 2 of them have contacted me and said that they were going to frame them and put them on the wall, which I think is a good thing. We had 2 referrals to the FCC, and the FCC gave us 2 cases to work on. Part of the deal was that they could assign us cases to run down where they needed additional evidence but didn't have field engineer in that area. So that's the statistics. But we also encourage, in some of our cases, some complainants to use their local laws, such as harassment by communications, which many states have laws against harassment by communications, and they were originally designed for telephone harassment, but they've evolved to cover computer and radio as well. For example, a case went to the Tennessee Court of Appeals recently. A local repeater group was getting constant harassment and interference from an operator there in a town in Tennessee. They went to court, harassment by communications, and the judge issued a restraining order. Now, the person that was the subject of the restraining order violated it within an hour. Now, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is real life cases. So he was taken back to court, and the judge gave him 30 days in jail. So he went to the Tennessee Court of Appeals with total confidence, I'm sure, that when they argued preemption on the part of the FCC, that he would be turned loose and it would be dismissed. That wasn't the case. The Tennessee Court of Appeals ruled that what was relevant was that the restraining order was violated, not that it was an area of federal preemption. So he served his 30 days in jail, and it was a remarkable attitude adjustment. And hearing him on the air after that, it was just an incredible transformation. And 30 days in jail will do that. A lot of states have these statutes. So it's dangerous to assume that because the FCC is not necessarily out there, that these people who are trying to destroy our bands will be scot-free. We can also ask the FCC to block renewals, upgrades, or even to start a proceeding to modify a license to delete phone privileges in certain cases. So you just can't assume that the FCC is inactive because of COVID restrictions. And it's important to point out, though, that the volunteer monitors are not the band police. Our job is to audit the bands and report significant problems that are degrading amateur radio or endangering amateur radio. And then we try to resolve them, and if we can't, the FCC gets involved in them. And the FCC's made it clear that they expect referrals if we can't get these cases. And as I mentioned earlier, the FCC gives us some cases from time to time to gather evidence. And I want to dispel one all too common notion right now. It's not the no-coders on the bands that cause problems. I never noticed one difference in enforcement when the requirement to know Morse code was eliminated. The problems on the bands, to the extent we have them, are by people who've been licensed long enough to know better. And I have never run into a situation yet where somebody came to me and complained about the code being eliminated, where when I asked them if they had filed comments in the no-code proceeding, they said they had. Most of the people complaining about it never filed comments in the proceeding in the first place. And a lot of those complaining about it haven't made a CW contact in 20 years. And when you look at the statistics of those filing in the no-code proceeding, it was less than 1% of the total amateur population. So that's my position on the no-code. It's not those people, it's people that should know better. Our job is to preserve the bands and enhance them, but we don't babysit the bands, and we don't want to be known as the band cops or the people that are out there babysitting the bands. We have thousands of frequencies, and all of us take examinations on how to use this stuff and how to use the equipment. And we cannot try, and we're not going to try to resolve what are essentially playground disputes, where someone just won't be courteous enough to move a couple of kilohertz out of the way. You hear a lot of mention these days of rights. You hear very little mention of responsibilities. And when it comes to amateur radio, we don't really have frequency rights. If you look at your license, you'll see that you have privileges, not rights, and privileges can be lifted. And the overall point and the philosophy of the program is that we're all in this together. There could be other uses for our frequencies. And when you hear idiotic conduct on 7200, which I have on right now,
you can't have an antenna, but somehow I got it slipped by through
which is reasonably tame, but usually 7200 sounds the best when you don't hear any communications on it other than my S2 noise, which isn't bad at all. But 7200 is a trouble spot. And there could be other uses for all of our frequencies. And when you hear conduct like occasionally happens on 75 meters, used to be 3860, now it's 7200, that endangers all of our frequencies because we just have the privileges of these frequencies. There's a lot of different uses for radio frequencies, and we're lucky to have the thousands of frequencies that we do. Now, the good news about amateur radio is that we're a cross-section of society. The bad news about amateur radio is that we're a cross-section of today's society, which too often is rude and selfish and boisterous and impolite, and will take offense when no offense was intended, and we focus on rights and not responsibilities. And all of us have a responsibility not to destroy our own bands. I was often asked over the last 20 years, would the internet destroy amateur radio? Or would Echolink destroy it? There were people who were convinced that Echolink would destroy amateur radio. Or would PSK 31 or FT8 or remote stations destroy it? Or would WhatsApp or texting destroy it? And obviously they haven't. The biggest threat to amateur radio, if you really want to know what it is, the biggest threat to amateur radio is the microphone. And you'll hear that on sometimes on 75 and sometimes 40, as I said. It's the ugly, deliberate interference situations with slander and juvenile delinquents who have thousands of dollars of radio equipment, or rather, I should say, adults acting as juvenile delinquents. They have thousands of dollars of radio equipment, beautiful signals, and they act like that on the bands. It's an embarrassment. I think it was Edward R. Murrow who said, just because your opinion can be heard around the world does not mean it's any more important than when it can be heard only at the end of the bar. And we need to all think about that. We tend to, too many people take the bait, get into an argument. We have a responsibility to pass on this joyful avocation to future licensees in at least as good a shape as we found it. On some of these conduct situations, it's not just the actions of the guilty parties, it's the overall conduct that would eventually destroy amateur radio. And we don't have the same clout, for example, with our next series of challenges. We don't have the same clout with the solar industry as we do with the power industry. Now, the power industry overall for radio frequency interference has been exceptionally cooperative. In fact, they have been on a board, and I have been on this board, this committee. We've been working for about 3 years, and we're just about done with it, to come up with an IEEE standard for resolving power line interference. But in the next few years, solar power interference, especially interference from these vast solar panel arrays, will far outnumber radio frequency interference from power lines. The very large arrays have devices called optimizers, and these are on the extremely large fields, which the optimizers ramp up certain sections of solar panels when other sections of solar panels are blocked by clouds, and it tears up amateur radio big time. So we have to take the high road and not embarrass ourselves and not aggravate ourselves to death, because we have to work with the solar industry. And if the solar industry listens to our frequencies, we don't want to be embarrassed before a Senate or congressional subcommittee or whatever. It's not against the FCC rules to make an ass of yourself on the microphone. But every time you do, you invite extinction and you invite other uses of our frequency. The main thing about, and the Orientals have a saying about Americans, that Americans always take the bait. And we have to get in an argument. We hear something we don't like, we have to get in an argument. But on every receiver ever made and every transmitter, or every transceiver, there's one big knob. It's the biggest one on there, and it's made real big for a purpose. So you can easily change frequencies without having to open the instruction manual. It's just an intuitive giant knob on there. They could be all the same size. In the older rigs that would have 46 knobs and buttons, there was one big one, which was the CFO. And on other rigs, modern day rigs, it's the same way. So when you hear things that are harmful to amateur radio, I would advise people not to engage, as tempting as it may be. Just turn the big knob and think about your responsibilities and what you owe amateur radio. And if you don't do that, you'll contribute to making it extinct. The purpose of our program is to prevent that. We want amateur radio to last 100 years. I used to say 1,000 years, but I don't even think Earth will be here in 1,000 years at the rate we're going, so I'd be happy with 100 years. But our purpose of our program is to enhance radio and to prevent extinction, and neither we nor the FCC can regulate idiocy on the bands or selfishness. So I would just encourage people, listen to what you're saying, what you sound like. Act on the air as if you knew that there was a grandfather or grandmother somewhere demonstrating amateur radio to a 12-year-old who might be a future licensee, future inventor, future scientist, or whatever. And if you don't sound good enough to do that, then I would really hope that you would look at your conduct on the bands. Overall, amateur radio has splendid and always has had splendid compliance, but maybe being in enforcement too long, I tend to focus on the bad spots, but we just don't need to engage that. And if you do hear it, leave the frequency. A couple of nets I have pulled out of because they were a little too raw for me, and they were not a good reflection on amateur radio. And I've lost some long-term friends over the way they acted on the radio. That's the price we pay, and that's what we have to do if we want to keep it. But if there are any volunteer monitors listening, I want to thank you for for the last 10 months. You have really put in a lot of hours, a lot of good information. And you know, these guys that are acting, and women too, that we have that are acting as volunteer monitors, they could be spending that time enjoying amateur radio. But to the extent they use their time to monitor, they're using their time to help preserve and enhance amateur radio. So I can't thank them enough. The program was much more difficult to set up than I thought, but it's running much better than I thought that it would be at this point. And so February will be our 1 year mark. And I'm really happy with the way the program's gone. We haven't been able to have a lot of meetings with the league or any meetings in person because of COVID. But the good thing about the volunteer monitor program is their work is done from home in front of the rig anyhow. So it hasn't affected us like it has other aspects of the hobby, such as Hamfest. I would give anything to go to a Hamfest. I took them for granted before, but I never will again. When everything opens up, I'm going to try to go to every one within 250 miles. I just really miss them. And it's a camaraderie which we're suffering from not having during COVID, but hopefully this next year will be better. And thank you, Tom, for having me on. And I'll update you on our program anytime you want to. And it's good to see all of you folks here on the program.
You know, Ryan, just a couple of questions. Now, are these volunteers, are they kind of anonymous? Do their names get...
No, they're not anonymous. We just don't publish the names. And the reason for that is that towards the end of the OO program, a lot of the OOs were really demoralized because they would send somebody a notice and then they would hear themselves being talked about and ridiculed on the air. Mm-hmm. You know, 25 years ago, if you got a notice from an OO, you looked at it and said, man, I'm glad I heard from them rather than the FCC. But these days, at the end of the OO program, people would get a notice from the OO. And of course, what do they think about? You know what they're thinking about. How can I sue this person? What right do they have to send me a notice, even though they're trying to do you a favor? Mm-hmm. So we it's not keeping them anonymous. We just don't publish who they are. And the FCC insisted on that too, because they wanted them to be free.
And you know, another thing I like that you mentioned there is this group sends out good operation letters. Back in the 60s, nobody sent me a good operation letter, you know. I did get a letter once, and it was one of those bad letters from the FCC.
Well, they're free to nominate certain licensees for a good operator letter, and the FCC wanted us to encourage good operation as well as discourage bad operation. So there is a good operator. What is that? Good operator report, W2AEW. Man, that must have been a mistake. I'm just kidding. But we've had some very deserving licensees get these letters, and we go over them quite. The nominations, we really go over them. Dan Henderson at the league and I, maybe a couple other people, we look at each and every report sent in and decide who gets it. And out of about 50 that are sent, I would say maybe 5 get letters, but it's a good thing to have. And I still have my original A1 operator certificate, I think it was called, by the ARRL in the old days. I still have that in one of my first logbooks.
Yeah. Really, I wanted to mention that I got an OO report when I first got into ham radio. I had bad key clicks on my CW, and I wasn't aware of it. And so I got that card in the mail, and I was so happy that it wasn't an official, it wasn't an FCC report. I was so happy that it was an OO report. I actually put that report up on my QSL cards on the wall.
Yeah. And I got an OO one too. I might have got 2 OO cards. I think I was like 2 cycles out of my novice band one time. But I got that card. But
I have another question for you, Riley. Sure. Do you have any openings in your volunteer observer program, and how would we, and if there are, how would we contact?
Get into that? What we did to solicit applications was we announced it on the league website, and we got 250 applications right off the bat within the filing window. So we closed the filing window in July. Then we started the process of telephone interviews with every one of these applicants. That's what I did last summer, not this past summer, but the one before that. And we expected to open it up to additional applications frequently, but there hasn't been any turnover. We've had one person that got COVID and asked to be relieved for a while, but we redshirted them and kept them in the reserve pool. And we have about 50 in the reserve pool who can't be in the program right now, but whose application looked good and want to be. We didn't really, this is the thing that it still amazes me to this day, and I'm happy about. We didn't say no to anybody. This first batch of applications were excellent. We had broadcast engineers. We had software designers for SDR, for Apple, a lot of good applications. So if it looked good, we said you're on. And I think in the spring, probably we would open it up again, and you would see announcements of that on the league website. And it would say that we're taking applications for volunteer monitors again. Some of these people may get tired of doing it. I've only had one person resign, and that was because they didn't like the FCC's posture on language on the amateur band. But we periodically have someone that says, I have severe job requirements or health issues in the family. I'd like to be put on the standby list. And we put them back in the reserve pool. But I would say that at the earliest, next spring, we may ask for a few more applications. But the way that would be announced would be on the league news items, and there'd be a lengthy filing period and plenty of publicity. But we had some really, really good applications, and you didn't have to have a lot of exotic qualifications or equipment. We have people that have a basic transceiver with a wire antenna. We have people who have antenna farms and tens of thousands of dollars of equipment. We have them across the board in that sense, and we're a little sparse in some states, such as Iowa. I don't think we have a volunteer monitor there, but that has been a very sane state from a radio standpoint anyway. You know, if you needed one person in Iowa, it means you would need 3,000 in California. Mm-hmm. But you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But, I was really happy with the general spread and coverage of the volunteer monitors, and by chance we were able to have additional coverage in areas that the FCC requested. So that part of it went well. But you have my call sign, and anybody that has any questions about this anytime, just send me an email and I will call you. It may take a day or two, but I will call you or answer your email.
All right. You're in QRZ, and let's see. Let me put your call back up. There we go. K4ZDH. Look him up in QRZ and send Raleigh an email.
And I'll answer it. I'll answer every one of them. It may take me a day or two, but you'll get an answer.
Yeah. Well, man, Raleigh, we really appreciate it having you here tonight. You have been a part of this show. In fact, you have a 15-minute segment each week on here, and when you're not here, we just have 15 minutes of silence. So if
okay.
you know, anytime you want to come back on here, you can fill that spot. All right.
That reminds me of, I worked for an AM radio station in high school, and we had to read the obituaries every week.
Oh boy.
Play organ music.
Yeah.
And if nobody died that week in Rock Hill, South Carolina,
so what did you do?
5 minutes of silence.
Is that right?
Organ music. So you could do that on your show.
I guess we could.
Real quick.
We could do that. Man, hey, thanks so much, man. And look, hey, I know it's late on the East Coast. It's probably past your bedtime, but we got Alan coming up next. He's staying awake. He's in the East Coast, and he's going to talk about SDRs here in a minute. You're welcome to stick around the whole show and take part in it if you want to.
I will stick around and watch it and listen to the amateur frequencies, but I probably won't participate. But I'm anxious to hear the presentation on SDR, though.
All right. Hey, I just saw.
So that I don't hear the snoring.
I just and just let me say, my friend Michael Coulter, I see him in the chat room. Michael is up in with
Hello,
the
Michael.
Dayton Hamvention. You guys know Michael, and they're getting ready. They're thinking they're going to pull this Ham Fest off, the Hamvention. I hope they can. Maybe things will get better soon.
Hello, Michael. It'll be good to see you at the Ham Fest.
So I think Michael probably just tuned in for you tonight, Riley. So that's great. Thanks, Michael, for being here. Let's see. Just real quick, since we're an audio-visual show, but I got to do a little audio here. If you're listening on shortwave out there, you're listening to Amateur Radio Roundtable. This is a show all about ham radio, and you just heard from Riley Hollingsworth, who is retired from the FCC and is now heading up the volunteer monitor program that monitors our ham radio frequencies and tries to keep it under control there. Hey, if you're out there, send us an email to tom@w5kuv.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, I'm pretty pleased with our attendance tonight. Our viewer base grew quite a bit tonight. I'm seeing a number here that we've had 870 people come into the show tonight. So that's a pretty good number, I'm thinking, tonight. We will try to improve that next week. And if you're out there in a chat room, hey, man, please press the subscribe button. As I mentioned earlier, we've never asked you to subscribe. We always marketed or branded our show as a non-YouTube show, but it's caused us some issues where we're not getting noticed on YouTube. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell that will notify you when we go live, and hit the like button. Hit the like button a couple times, because the like button will drive up our rating, and that way more people will see us on YouTube. So thank you so much. Hey, let's go out here to Alan. Alan, how you doing, man, up here in Jersey?
In New Jersey, yes. Old people outside of New Jersey call it Jersey. We just
Jersey.
So good to see you, Riley. Really great presentation, and glad to have you heading up this really good organization. So, just a quick funny story. You mentioned how the cross section of the population is a good thing and a bad thing. It reminds me of kind of this COVID situation, working from home. I tell people, the good thing is you can get up and get a cookie whenever you want. The bad thing is you get up and get a cookie whenever you want. So that's what happens here. So let's see, Tom. I just need you to allow me to share, and
we're going to have to make this. Hey, let me ask you a question. You have some rights. Can you not do it yourself?
No, I have the rights on YouTube, but I don't have rights.
No, I've assigned you some rights here. Look at the bottom and see if you got anything down at the bottom where you can bounce people and.
Yeah, that's I think all on the YouTube thing, but not on Zoom. I just need
you're you know what? You're right. You're right. I'm losing it. There's too many things to click on. There you go.
There we go. Okay, yeah, so this is just a short little thing. I'm not going to get into a lot of details on SDR. I just want to kind of differentiate between what is an SDR and what isn't. So that's very what we'd start off with here. So let me do a quick share of this presentation here. And we'll bring that full screen. So you should be able to see that all there now. So again, I'm Alan Wilkie, W2AEW, and here's our Tech Tips segment for tonight. So just a brief little introduction to what is software-defined radio. So the first thing we'll take a look at is what is a conventional radio kind of look like. And this is a very simplified diagram of a dual conversion superhet radio, which is what most of what we'll call hardware-defined radios are, or HDRs, okay? Sometimes there's additional conversion stages for things like image rejection and selectivity in the radio to give you some flexible filtering, because it's easier to get narrowband filtering at lower IFs. It's easier to get wider band filtering at higher IFs, but it's harder. The selectivity is better in one, but image rejection is better in the other. So multiple conversion stages are used. Also to get wider frequency range and things like that, which is why we'll typically see, multiple conversion stages in some of the traditional radios. Okay. All mode transceivers and radios and things like that. This is just kind of showing more of a receiver chain, but the transmit chain just works in the opposite direction. As we mentioned, multiple filter selections available to give you best image rejection and adjacent band rejection. Multiple filter selections in kind of a lower frequency IF for good signal to noise ratio and adjacent signal rejection. There's also additional filtering and equalization available in the audio amplification stage to enhance your listening experience. These are all things typically done in hardware in non-SDR radios. You'll also have multiple detectors and demodulators for different modes, AM, FM, single sideband, CW, and others. Each one of those has its own, or sometimes will share, but oftentimes will have their own detectors and demodulators that are necessary, all built in hardware. Some radios have got pan adapter outputs that are typically taken from one of the higher IF stages to look at wideband RF activity. So these are all things that are, have been in, our hardware-defined radios for ages here. So, but I just want to kind of point out, some of these things because we're going to see these same things in software-defined radios as well. Also, optional scanning features and things like that. So, the first kind of entree into, what we now call software-defined radios was starting to see some digital signal processing entering into the radio. So just because a radio has DSP or digital signal processing doesn't necessarily mean that it's a software-defined radio. It just means that we're starting to move bits closer and closer to the antenna. DSP or digital signal processing was kind of the first entrance of digital signal processing into our radios. And for digital signal processing, a signal is sampled, much like a movie taking snapshots of action. An analog to digital converter takes voltage snapshots, if you will, of a signal, and then those signals are essentially just numeric samples. That's the sampling rate. How fast we take those samples has to be more than twice the highest frequency that you actually want to go and characterize and analyze or process. You basically have a time series of binary numbers. Okay, it's just these all essentially get put into memory and then go and processed. These numeric samples can then be altered mathematically, and that's really the signal processing piece of it by just doing math on this. And then you just reassemble them at the other end. You convert them back to analog so you can listen to what the result of this processing. So a digital to analog converter takes those time series of modified binary numbers and converts them back into analog. So this does not make a software-defined radio, but it's a technique that is used within software-defined radios. It was kind of the basis for getting some digital signal processing in our analog radios. Okay, so the first entrance for DSP, and where was it kind of encompassed? The first place it happened was at the back end of the radio, audio baseband sampling and then filtering and equalization and things like that. This is the first place we started to see some of this, the DSP going into radios, mainly because the frequencies are low. They're audio frequencies, meaning that eased the requirements on the sample rate for the analog to digital converter and the digital to analog converter, as well as the signal processor, right? Because you don't want to have a lot of delay in this processing path, because that could will affect how, if it becomes an audible delay, that might be a problem in trying to have a conversation. Okay. So this is all done very easily, was done easiest at these low frequencies like the audio frequencies. So that's the first place we started to see DSP. Later, as technology advanced and the ADCs and DACs and DSP processors got faster, we started to see digital signal processing move up into the next IF, like the second or third, the last IF of the radio, because now we can sample fast enough to be able to sample that IF frequency. And then do some math on that to do additional things like filtering at the IF level. Again, the ADC and DAC requirements are a little more stringent because we've got to sample faster and process things faster. But as technology advanced and integrated circuits got better, that's where we started to see a lot more processing. So that's the next place where DSP came in. That's where you hear like digital IF filters. That's really what we're talking about here. Okay. Again, as technology advances, the bits are essentially just moved closer and closer to the antenna. This is driven by the speed of the ADC, the converters, the analog to digital and digital to analog converters, and driven by the speed of the processors to do the math that's necessary on the digital signals. So more and more processing is done on sampled signals versus analog signals, and we're going to get closer and closer to SDR. And when we start incorporating other functions like filtering, demodulation, down conversion, things like that, now we start to call these things software-defined radios, okay? Because now we can actually start replacing some of these discrete analog circuits with just software to actually to implement what's going on, okay? So kind of at a glance, this real simple top-down block diagram here is, a really very simplified version of a software-defined radio. We'll typically have some RF front end, maybe some roofing filtering, some preamplification, some attenuation, things like that. And then, the holy grail is to throw the digitizer, the analog to digital converter, right there. Digitize as soon as possible, okay? And we digitize in a way to create something called IQ samples that I'll talk about here in a moment. Once we've got that, then it's really just a matter of doing all the mathematical processing and then going back to an audio signal that you can listen to. So a software-defined radio is really a lot more than simply software controlled, right? In a software-defined radio, software implements several features. It implements down conversion, which was typically done with a mixer and a local oscillator and a filter, right? We can do that all mathematically in a software-defined radio, okay? The filtering and additional filtering above and beyond that. Doing actually demodulation, detection, and things like that can now all be done digitally. Creating things like RF and audio spectrograms and waterfalls. Because we've got all the math there, we can do a bunch of FFTs and display things in interesting ways. Okay, so that's all part of what the software does in an SDR. Be able to do scanning and things like that, and be able to do decoding and things like that. A lot of these software-defined radios have got CW decoders and PSK decoders, things like that built in, so you can get those displays decoding right on your screen. Okay. Now, all of this is really enabled because the processing, the sampling of the data is done in such a way it's called IQ or quadrature sampling. And I'll just do two quick little slides on this. I'm not going to get into this in depth. I've got a video on it. If you're interested, you can go take a look at. But so what is IQ? So just to give you a quick basic of what I and Q are. I and Q are quadrature signals, and that's a big word that means something very simple. It just means that you have two signals that are 90 degrees out of phase, like a sine wave and a cosine wave. These waves are said to be in quadrature because they have a 90-degree phase relationship between them. That's all quadrature means. Okay, but why is it important? Because you can do interesting things with quadrature signals. Like if we look at just adding a sine and a cosine wave, right? If we just modify the amplitude of the sine or the cosine wave, we can cause the output to change, right? So if we multiplied the cosine wave by 1 and multiplied the sine wave by 0, the output would be a cosine, right? If we do the opposite, the output would be a sine. So simply by changing the amplitude of one wave or the other, we've actually created a phase shift. That's kind of interesting. So if both the I and Q are the same level, you're going to have a sine wave output that's shifted by 45 degrees. So we can actually do a phase shift, which is essentially like a modulation, just by changing amplitudes of signals. Okay. So if we extend that concept further, you can arbitrarily change the amplitude of an I and a Q signal, add them together to create any type of modulation. Amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, phase modulation, single sideband. You can do any kind of modulation with appropriate I and Q magnitude changes. So just by doing simple amplitude variation of these I and Q components. Now all this works in reverse in a receiver as well. So any RF signal coming in, if we do a quadrature down conversion to create I and Q waveforms, okay, and this is essentially what happens in most SDRs. We do this, you hear quadrature down conversion, or there's a couple of other different terms, the Taylor quadrature converter that's used in a lot of hobbyist kit SDRs and things like that. It's our quadrature sampling detector, basically the same thing, okay, to create I and Q signal pairs. Once you've got those I and Q signal pairs, you know everything you need to know about that signal. Without getting into the complex math of it, once you have I and Q, you essentially know the amplitude and phase of the incoming RF signal at any instant in time. And once you know that, you can mathematically do anything with that signal in terms of looking at its spectrum, demodulating it, shifting its frequency, anything like that. Once you've got that data. So I'm not going to get into the complex math, but I do have a video on I&Q in more detail. But filtering, demodulation, down conversion, all of that stuff is made very easy, relatively speaking. It's really just math at this point. It's just algorithms to process this IQ data to ultimately wind up with the audio signals that you want to listen to, and then the same thing works in reverse. Okay. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages? In a sense, a software-defined radio is simpler hardware design, right? I don't need all these mixers and local oscillators and filters. I don't need to have separate detectors or demodulators for different modes. I don't need to have separate filters and things like that for CW filters and single sideband filters and roofing filters. All that stuff can be done digitally. So the hardware itself is actually simpler. Okay. You also get wideband visibility. I mean, you all seen radio with the pan adapters on them, the band scopes on them, and things like that. And that's, even before SDRs, we started seeing those in some of the rigs and things like that. But it was all done with digital signal processing, because since we're digitizing the signal at closer and closer to the antenna, we're doing it at over a much wider bandwidth, so we can actually see wideband activity. Because the filtering is all defined algorithmically, right, mathematically, we essentially have infinitely variable filtering. We don't have to have discrete filters at specific bandwidths, and that's all you have. You've got this infinitely variable filtering capability. And also, new modes, new features, new capabilities are just software or firmware upgrades. You don't have to go buy another filter and solder it in your radio if you wanted to get a different filter, right? You can get an upgrade to the firmware to the transceiver and get new capabilities. So that's all. It's all possible by having everything kind of software defined. Advanced features like equalization both on receive and on transmit to minimize distortion and intermodulation distortion and things like that. All that can be done now right in the radio itself. And a potential for some really pretty high performance. If you take a look at, oh shoot, the name just escaped out of my head, the guy that rates all the radios and has the whole big table of all radio performance and things like that. You know who I'm talking, Sherwood. You look at Sherwood's website, all of the radios that have got the highest, blocking dynamic range and things like that, they're all software-defined radios now because the technology has really kind of gotten there to enable that. So what are some of the disadvantages? There is a potential for overload and limited dynamic range because of the fact that we're sampling and digitizing a wide band of frequencies. So if you're trying to listen to a very low level signal at one end of the band that's being converted, and you've got a signal that's really far away, but very high level, that might overload the analog to digital converter, okay? So there's a potential there. And you're generally only going to run into that, though, when you are maybe in a contest, working in a multi-op contest situation or something like that. But that is a potential disadvantage for SDRs. And again, a lot of this comes down to money, right? If you look at some of the entry-level SDRs, like an IC 7300 or something like that, that's not going to necessarily perform as well as like an FTD X101 or one of the other, kind of higher performance, SDRs that are out there. Okay, in some SDRs, and it's not so much true these days, but some of the SDRs, all of this digital signal processing was done in a PC, so you needed a really fast PC to do all this work. More and more now, all this processing is done in the radio itself, so you don't necessarily need that. But it was at one point one of the bigger disadvantages with the SDRs, and we saw this with some of the really early ones, like the Pegasus and things like that. You needed a pretty good radio, and even some of the early Flex radios, you needed a PC to kind of go along with the SDR hardware. But again, most SDRs now are kind of self-contained, but not a whole lot of disadvantages. I talked about wideband visibility a couple of times, and that really kind of comes down to being able to see, the spectral activity of, RF activity. Now, the screenshot that I grabbed here was actually from just a little inexpensive USB software-defined radio looking at the FM broadcast band. Be able to see the spectrum of all the broadcast activity and things like that. But you've seen these types of displays now on the modern SDR rigs and things like that. And it's kind of the amateur radio equivalent of a fish finder that you would have on your fishing boat, right? See where the activity is and see where it isn't. So you might want to find a blank spot to go call CQ, or you want to go find where there's some QSOs happening. Real easy to go see that. And the SDRs typically are going to give you a couple of megahertz in many cases of visibility. So oftentimes you can look at an entire band, one of our bands, to see what's going on. Okay. There's a sampling of some of the SDRs that are out there. Probably one of the more popular ones out there now is the Icom IC 7300. Inexpensive, about $1,000, and you hear them all over the place on the radio. Really, it's amazing performance for the money, compared to what you could spend that same money 15 years ago. You don't get the kind of performance you're getting like with the 7300. And then, of course, they've got some higher ones like the 7610 is kind of a more high performance, SDR from Icom. Kind of the most recent Yaesu entrants or Yaesu rigs, the FTDX 101D and the FTDX 10, which was just announced, all software-defined radios. The new Elecraft, actually I put KX4, I think it's just a K4. I got a typo there, so it's just a K4. I'm not sure if that's actually released yet. I think it is, but that's a new high-performance SDR. All of the Flex radios, they've always been SDRs, and they've got them ranging from entry level to kind of the really high end. The 6700, I think, is that the one I'm showing there. But there's a number of others out there as well, but that's just a quick sampling of those. But so anyway, that's just a quick sampling of what's out there for SDRs. What makes an SDR different from a hardware-defined radio? What you can expect to get out of them, and some of the advantages. To me, I think that more and more radios are going to be going that way. I've seen some rumors of Kenwood coming out with a new high-end, developing a new high-end pure SDR. I think they're going to call it the ST995 or something like that. But I've only seen kind of rumors of it, so I'm not sure if anything's happening there. But I think we're going to see a lot more going that way. To me, I'm still a bit old school. I like buttons and knobs, so I prefer an SDR that has buttons and knobs on it as opposed to something where I'm using a PC and a touchscreen. But that's just me. But the good thing is that there's something out there for everybody. There's SDRs with buttons and knobs. There's SDRs that are out there that are just black boxes. Then you're using your PC to control everything, and just the fact that this technology kind of enables all those options for us. So anyway, hope that was a little instructive, gave you some idea of what SDRs are compared to HDRs or hardware-defined radios, and start taking a look at that. I would imagine that probably at least half of us have probably got software-defined radios in our shack now. I'm still not one of them yet, but maybe someday.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I like my SDR radios, and back Alan, back many years ago, and I'm sure Riley probably feels the same way. Hey, back then we still had the big knobs back then as we do today, but Riley, we didn't have the band scope and stuff back then. Isn't that neat having that now? I mean, technology is great.
Yeah, the band scope is the thing that is probably the thing that I would probably gravitate towards the most when I make a move to SDR. I still got an old Kenwood SM220 analog band scope hooked up to my Kenwood HF rigs here, but I do play around sometimes with those little RTL dongle SDR radios. There's a $20 dongle you stick in your PC. Run SDR Sharp or one of the other software-defined SDR applications on it, and pretty amazing for what it is.
Alan, I have a little more expensive one, but this is the FunCube Dongle Pro Plus.
Oh yeah,
for about $200, and that is my HF radio for Whisper. I just leave this on all the time, monitoring Whisper, and it does.
Oh wow.
Fantastic job on HF and, of course, VHF and UHF.
Yeah.
But the Pro Plus version, it's got all kinds of nice filters built into it, and it's just a little USB dongle. but it does a fantastic job on HF. I use HD SDR,
Okay.
also SDR Sharp. Either one works great with this.
Oh, that's great. Very good. Yeah, there's so many out there. I could have put another 20 slides of the various SDR offerings that are out there, but I like that little one because it's so portable. You could be traveling, just bring that thing with you and a piece of wire, and you've got an HF radio so to go listen to. So. All right.
All right. Well, great, man. Hey, thanks. Great segment there. Let's see what we got going here now. Let's jump over to Bill. You said you had something you want to talk about, Bill. What do you got going there?
Well, there's an interesting event going on right now with the International Space Station to honor their 20th anniversary in space, and the one of the ham transmissions, they're sending down slow scan television until probably 1800 UTC on the 31st. So every pass that goes over your area, tuned to 145/800. It's the APRS is usually on 145/825, but the slow scan TV is on 145.800. And I downloaded an app on my iPhone because I didn't have a slow scan TV program loaded into the computer, and I didn't have all that set up. So I wanted to quickly set it up, and I found a app from Black Cat Systems, and they make a lot of stuff for basically the Macintosh, the iMacs and things, but they also make a lot of apps for the iPhone. They have a teletype, a Morse code decoder, all on your iPhone. So this is what I picked up on my iPhone just by holding it up to the speaker of my 2-meter radio.
Yep.
As the ISS flew over. You can see it says ISS 20th anniversary celebration.
I've been watching a lot of people doing that with just by holding their telephone up to their handy-talkie.
You can see that's on my iPhone. And it's a really cool program. It's a free program. Actually, it's anyways, this is the actual program, and you can set up, there's 2 buttons for phase and skew, and you have to adjust that a little bit. The mode that they're using is called PD120, Papa Delta 120. And once you enter that into this little app, hold it up to the speaker, you'll hear the tone start, and it takes about 2 minutes for each frame of video. And once you decode that, you can upload it to a website, and let me see if I can find it. It's spaceflightsoftware.com, and then there's ARRISS _SSTV. Just search for ARRISS SSTV, ARRISS SSTV. It's amateur radio in the space station, and it basically there's a place you can upload what you receive, and if you do that, there's also a link that you can apply for a special certificate that you received this special event. So they're transmitting various kinds of pictures, and there's a place you can go on that website to see all the pictures that have been received by hams around the world.
Well, that's cool. Oh, I've got so many things going. I'm probably gonna have to skip that right now. But a lot of people are having a lot of fun with it.
About 1 p.m. Central Time on the 31st. So you have all day tomorrow and part of New Year's Eve to receive the event. It's been going on all this week, and a great place to see where and when the space station is going to be flying overhead is heavens-above.com, and click on the ISS link, and then click on the button for all passes, because you don't want to just see the visual passes, although that is a great place to see the space station visually if the lighting conditions are right.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you can, and they have a whole list there of all the amateur radio satellites that are going to be flying over your area, and heavensabove.com. And I'll try and put that into the chat room here.
Well, I assume there's an Android version and an iPhone version, probably.
I'm using an iPhone. I assume that there are slow scan TV programs for the Android as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, let's talk.
They also do Teletype, PSK31, Hellschreiber. They have all kinds of the programs for the iPhone that you can download from that.
Bill, which one are you using on the iPhone to do the SSTV? What's the name of the app?
It's called SSTV. It's by blackcatsystems.com.
Okay, thanks.
But if you just search for SSTV or Slow Scan TV on the App Store on an iPhone, you'll see basically it's the only one I could find. And you just a free download, open it up, and you're good to go.
Well, Bud says that Robot 36 is for the ARRL slow scan TV.
That was in the past, but right now for this event they're using Papa Delta 120.
Okay.
It instead of taking 36 seconds like their old Robot 36.
Okay.
It takes 2 minutes.
All right. Let's talk a minute, Bill, about our Pico balloons. And I'm trying to adjust your picture, and I'm having there we go. That might be a little better. Yeah, let's talk a little about Pico balloons. You know, our last balloon, KUB 22, only made it 1.5 times around the world. It seems like China always gets us. There's something around Mongolia, man. It's pretty bad.
Tibet area, and that was a really rugged area you came down in. That the mountain tops are around 17,000 feet tall.
Yeah. Well, we're getting 23 ready, and we're getting 23 ready to go. In fact, it's on the air right now in the dark out there under a tree. And it's transmitting right now. If you go to APRS, you should see W5KUB-23. And the battery is probably going to say it's getting low, probably down about 2.7 volts, 2.6, I don't know. But anyway, as I mentioned to you on chat, man, we're always wanting to do something different about the balloons. Now, we're going to be flying, I got some more SBS 13s coming in. I've got the tracker ready out there, but I want to shake it up a little bit. I'm thinking, okay, why don't we go heavyweight, like 25 grams, go heavyweight with the big balloon, and take a cube, like a CubeSat, and put solar cells on all 4 sides and the top. I think I can make one come in at about 23 grams doing that. And if I don't go 4 sides, maybe go 3 sides vertical with all solar cells and cells on top, I might could come in a little near 20. But that's only going to gain me, maybe an hour or 2 during the day?
Well, the one of the New Zealand hams, he put a trapeze, he angled them, I think he had 3
Yeah, I saw that.
panels angled at 45 degrees in a pyramid shape.
Yeah.
And he was able to get down to within a degree or 2 of sunset with that arrangement. Of course, it adds weight.
Yeah.
But that would be a good arrangement to do that.
So I'm thinking of that. I want to do something different, but I'm thinking, okay, I can maybe get the sun angle down to maybe 2 degrees. That'd be kind of cool. How much more time in the winter is that going to give me during the daytime? Will I gain 2 hours total?
You will gain about an hour and a half to 12. Yours was taking at least 22 degrees to operate. So about 2 hours, yeah.
So it's really not. It's really not worth it. Okay.
The farthest north latitude that you can operate. Right right around the solstice here. And so at 22 degrees solar angle, you're only going to operate up to about 47 degrees latitude.
Yeah.
So that would buy you closer to the edge of where the sun shines.
Well, okay, so I'm probably not going to do that. Now, all right, I'm thinking, okay, our little 10 milliwatts been doing really good, 10,000 miles, 9,000 miles, 10 milliwatts. But what if I lit the sky up? Would I make people mad? If I put a 100 milliwatt transmitter up there, would I make people mad? I mean,
I think 50 milliwatts would be an improvement. I have a little Class E amplifier I used on some previous experiments when I flew Domino EX and Hellschreiber and on balloons with a bigger transmitter years ago. And I used a Class E amplifier with a 2N7000 FET. So, and they make a surface mount one that's the 2N7000.
I've got the surface mounts 2N7002s or whatever they are. I got a box of them. I just got to come up with a really simple configuration for it. And,
it's a very simple amp. It's very efficient. That's what you need for that. And so that's a really a Class E amplifier with a 2N7002 would probably perk that up pretty good for you. And
yeah, I'm more concerned. Yeah, I don't have a problem in building up the Class E amp. My concern is getting a little filter built up right and putting it on there. You know, maybe I fly it without the filter. I don't know, but I'd like to build up a little filter. But I don't know what value. I've looked at all different schematics and stuff, and they go everywhere. It's millions of them.
I have a nice pi filter I use on my trackers. It's just 560 nanohenry coil choke, and it's a little tiny 0603 part.
Yeah.
And because it could still handle the current if you're running about 50 milliwatts probably.
Yeah.
And then 200 picofarad capacitors, the ground.
On each side of the Pi, 200 on each side? I mean, 100 on each, no.
100 each side, yeah.
200 on each side, yeah.
That'll really attenuate the harmonics. And
all right. So, someone was asking in the chat, in our Facebook group the other day, why are we having such bad luck? I mean, are we using the wrong balloon or somebody else using one that's thicker or what? I mean, there's not that many balloons out there to pick from, and we're pretty much flying the same thing everybody else is flying. I think it's what's called luck that comes in right there, really. There's not a lot of difference. When you use the same gas, the same lift, the same balloon, and you turn it loose, it's out of your control,
A group in Pella, Iowa, WB0URW and N0MPM, they have been launching balloons for the schools in near Pella, Iowa. And so they launched 2 balloons a few weeks apart.
Mm-hmm.
And they one of them was Whisper and one was APRS. And the Whisper one, after a couple of days, went up into the Arctic Circle and was not heard from again. And then the APRS one ended up in Europe and ended up high enough latitude that it was the sun didn't get up high enough to operate, so it was gone for about 4 days. All of a sudden,
you say 4 days?
A couple of days ago, WB0-8 showed up over China, and all of a sudden, WB0-12 showed up after being in the Arctic Circle for 22 days and was transmitting beautifully over Mongolia, and they were both only a few hundred miles apart to flying in formation. So,
that's cool. So, all right. So again, we want to do something different. I'm thinking, okay, we've always used hydrogen for the extra lift. I'm thinking, let's use helium this time in SBS. Now, I know we're going to fly maybe, 3,000 feet lower? Is that about what we would lose, maybe?
Yeah, that's about right.
So we'd probably fly at maybe close to 40,000. But and I noticed in checking some of the sites here, some of the wind speeds were actually higher down at the 39,000 foot level than they were up at the 44,000 foot level. So
and they are, and you would go faster around the world. Although you did it almost a world record at 9.5 days.
No, it's a world's record. I think our flight made it in like 9 days and 12 hours. I need to look.
That's probably close to the record time around the world.
Oh man, I really need to zero in and see what the exact times were, and so we may have broke a record here for the show, man. Wow, I didn't know that.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, we were doing so good. Even though the second lap looked like it was going to make it in 9 days. I mean, that's kind of unheard of, man. So I was getting really excited about that when it went down. Now there's a balloon up right now that's flying just. I mean, we've been flying the expensive balloons to get high and have a little bit more dependability, I guess, but. Some of these cheap, I'll say inexpensive Chinese balloons, these $4 balloons. There's a couple up right now. There's one that's flying two 36-inch cheap $4 balloons, and how many times has he been around now?
Oh well, basically those are. I don't know what kind of material it is, but they have a tab on both ends. One is designed to
where you can daisy chain them together,
but you can put a lot of free lift in them without them bursting.
But I think the one I looked at today is it the U4? Is it the U4B that he's flying two of them
and using those balloons?
And I think he's been around here 7 times.
Go ahead.
I think he's been around 7 times, and with those two balloons, he's flying at 39,000.
Yeah. So you basically want to pressure test those because their quality control is not the best, and so some of those, if you buy a bunch of those balloons, some of them are going to have holes in them. So you want to pressure test them before you fly them.
Well,
and it helps to stretch them out, anyways.
We're not good on pressure testing here. We just let them. We just let them.
An alternative for you.
Yeah. Well, we just let them rip here. I mean. You ready to launch it? Yeah, let her rip. So that's how we fly our balloons here, man. Rip, not meaning literally rip, but
that's probably not the best choice of words.
Yeah. I guess not. So anyway, we want to do something different. I mean, maybe I hang a spotlight that blinks under it. I don't know. How far could we see an LED if it's flashing? Could you see an LED at?
Not very far. I've tried it at night, and you can see it.
Then that's out. Somebody made a suggestion here. Instead of the ants, maybe we fly cockroaches. Now that's a pretty. I don't know what's the word.
We actually flew. Fishing crickets. We did an experience at a science camp in Indiana.
Yeah.
And we asked the students to come in with different experiments we could send into the stratosphere.
Did you get them back? Did he come back?
And, so they brought in a can of fishing crickets, and we thought, well, these are going to be eaten by fish anyways, so they don't survive. Not that big of a deal. So we didn't think the cricket league would come after us.
Well, nowadays they would. You shouldn't fly crickets, man.
So we flew them, and I didn't have high hopes for it because at 80,000 feet or more, it's 60 below zero, and it's a near vacuum.
Yeah.
So, but the rumor was that fishing crickets could hold their breath for 2 hours. That was the internet rumor. And as you all know, everything that's posted on the internet is true, right?
I hear cockroaches can stay underwater for like hours.
Oh, they'll survive a nuclear blast.
Yeah, I mean, they come from the prehistoric dinosaur days, really. I mean, even the meteor that hit the Earth didn't kill the cockroaches. So we might ought to try. I don't know about training the cockroaches, though. It may not.
Quite as cute as the ants, I have to say.
You know, the ants are really disciplined. They're very nice. You know, they don't get mad when they crash. We've been able to rescue them. You know, every time we've been able to rescue the ants. And man, you know, in fact, let's see. There's a picture of the ants there, right there. They're in their NASA training right there. And you know, they're in pretty good shape here. You know, I was going to.
Do you have a picture of them being rescued?
Yeah, I've got that. Let me pull it up here, if I can, real quick. And because we got a lot of new people in here, they may have never seen this.
Well, by the way, those fishing crickets we sent up into the stratosphere, they all survived. I was really surprised that that particular internet rumor was true.
All right, let me see. I think I'm about to pull it up here. Yeah, here we go. Let me see if I can show that. Let me see. All I gotta do is find the right button here. Oh man. Oh, here we go. Here's a picture of them right after they were rescued. Right here when they went down over Mongolia. Let's see. Let's see if I can get them in here a little better. I say that's a good looking shot right there. That's Huey and Dewey right there. And that was pretty good. They didn't have too tough a time. They did have to go underground there for a couple of days until the rescue team got to them. I have one of these guys are real troopers. They are, you know, they're really they've really been trained well, and they know their stuff. And I've got another shot here of their last rescue. I can pull it up. Boy, it must be way down here. We've flown so many flights that it's amazing.
Tom, are you looking for the one with SEAL Team 6?
No, I was actually looking for them when the airplane flew by and spotted them in the Norwegian Sea up there. I've got it here somewhere. Oh man, what a mess. Okay, I'm probably not going to be able to find it. Who knows? Who knows where it is? Okay. Well, anyway, the ants have had quite a life. They've done a lot of cool things, and we're real proud of them. Well. All right. Well, anyway, so back to the show here. Let me get back on here.
By the way, Tom, this is another dongle that I use. This one's primarily for VHF, UHF, but it costs about $20.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
Like a $30 one that will also do HF. It's not as good on HF as this $200 one, but I really love this one. This one just has great filtering, and it worked fantastic on HF and all the bands really. But $200, but that still beats $1,000.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to be listening only, which I do on Whisper, I just leave this running all the time on Whisper for a receive station.
All right, well, so look, be thinking, I got to do something different for this flight. This flight, we think we're going to be coming up with this flight here in the next 5 or 10 days. So I want to do something different, man. Maybe a 5-watt transmitter. I don't know what we're going to do, but I want to do something.
What? If you doubled your power, you would get a pretty good range.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed at just what that 3 dB difference would be in your
service. Well, you know, the only place we really need it is when we get over the stands. And I don't know what all the stands are. Turkestan, Pakistan, something other stand, all those stands out there, you know?
Stand.
There must be something that just sucks the signals out of the air over there. I don't know.
That's because there's very few HF amateur radio operators in that region.
But Bill, I mean, I'm over Africa. I can be picked up in Australia 9,000 kilometers away. Why can't I be picked up 9,000 kilometers over the stands? It's like it's a black hole there, man.
Well, I've done some tests. Really, the 10 milliwatt level. Once you start going below that on Whisper, your range really drops out from. You're limited to single hop and double hop transmissions.
And you know what?
And you increase your power just a little bit, then you get hops all the way into the other side of the world. Like
I'm not even sure we're running 10 milliwatts. We may be running 6 milliwatts. I don't know. And as that voltage gets low, you know the output is a lot lower too. So,
yeah.
Oh man.
I noticed you had a few transmissions clear down to 2.1 volts, which is
yeah.
So.
Yep. All right. We'll be thinking what we can do to go radical on this next flight. I want to go radical on the next flight. So, hey, anybody out there in the chat room, if you got an idea what we need to do on this next flight, let us know, and we'll try to incorporate it there. Okay, hey, real quick, let's see, Glenn Popel, you're still with us. Glenn, did you have anything you were going to show us tonight?
No, not tonight. I did want to mention that the QST for January is out. I got my copies today, and the review of that Arduino Explorer prototyping kit is in there this month.
Yeah. Okay.
No, save my stuff for the next time around.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Who's left in the room here? Is Riley still with us? I can't tell who's in here.
He dropped off.
Did he drop off? Okay. Did Katie drop off?
No, she's here.
Katie, you still with us?
I am, but I'm about ready to go.
Oh my goodness! I
Almost eggnog time.
Yeah. Of course. Hey. We need to really be worried about Alan because it's almost 11 p.m. where Alan. Look at his eyes; it's starting to droop a little bit. Katie, where you are out west, it's about 3 in the afternoon. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not in Hawaii. It's
yeah.
But it's 9 o'clock. It's my bedtime.
Oh man! Hey, do you have to get up like early to go to work?
Oh, not too bad. But I like to have a little quiet time in the morning with my coffee and cats before I get ready.
Yeah.
And I want to give a quick shout out and a happy birthday to Glenn, whose birthday is on Friday.
And happy birthday to you, because yours is Thursday.
All right, man. Happy birthday to you guys. Cool.
Well, see, the party starts at her place on Thursday and ends on mine on Friday.
Okay,
Right,
well,
there you go.
that's cool.
Birthdays are 1 year apart then.
Hey.
Yeah.
I was my mama's New Year's Eve hangover that just never went away.
Well, I'm going to say Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
All right, well, Katie, thanks so much for being with us tonight, man. You, great job, and if you fix that mic, we may not have as many people leave us during the show. No, I'm just kidding with you, Katie.
I'll do my
I'm
best.
kidding, Katie. Actually, guys, I've had people tell me in the chat room, Katie's not here, so I'm leaving, and they leave. They don't stick around 1 minute. So, Katie, thank you. You're a big part of the show, and you help us with our viewer
they
base
shouldn't
out
be
there.
ditching because there's much more interesting things that always happen on this show. So, just kind of
There are some. You know what? There were some really interesting things that happened here a couple years ago, and I still can't talk about it on the show right now. But that was a wild and crazy night.
Yeah,
and you were there, and Rich was there. It was one of the nights that we had Rich there, and you and Martin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, one of these days we'll be able to talk about it again.
Yeah. I just followed up again with that this week to try to find out what is going on. All right.
All right, everybody. Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye.
Good night. We'll see you later.
Hey, Tom, I've got a comment that I was listening when Riley was talking about be an example if you were showing somebody new to ham radio. it's a great example to see what ham radio can be, rather than some of the embarrassing frequencies that exist out there. And because when I was a young boy, my great uncle, W8UN, he has been a ham since 1921. So he had this rack of equipment, this room filled with glowing tubes and dials and meters. And that was so impressive to a 5-year-old boy. And then he tuned in a frequency, and there was a little beep, beep, beep. He said, "Do you know what that is?"
Sputnik.
That's a satellite.
What was it? Yeah.
I heard the first Sputnik. And that was just so impressive just to hear that it got me interested in both amateur radio and the space program.
All right.
So, that's the kind of thing we need on the bands and I think the digital modes have really inspired a lot of the younger hams into ham radio. The college programs that I help out in, they all love the digital modes, and that's been an inspiration for getting younger people into ham radio.
Well, we need to, I love the old days, man. I need to pull out some pictures of all the racks I had, too.
Before the FCC existed, my great uncle started out in Spark Gap in 1921.
Oh, man.
And this worked well for a while until one day the local authorities showed up on his doorstep because he was wiping out the brand new AM radio station that had popped up.
Oh, boy.
He was wiping out all the receivers for miles around in the town. No one could hear the local radio when he was operating Spark Gap. So that ended his Spark Gap days.
Yeah.
And when I was at W1AW, they fire up that Spark Gap, but they don't do it for very long for that very reason.
Yeah. Hang on a second. We got about 30 seconds left in our time slot for shortwave. If you're listening out there on WBCQ on shortwave, international shortwave on 7490, you've been listening to a ham radio program called Amateur Radio Roundtable. We're here so you're listening on Thursday if you're listening to the show on radio, but you can join us Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, or you can our 0200 UTC Wednesdays. You can go to w5kub.com and join the show. If you're listening out there on shortwave, send us an email to tom@w5kub.com. Thanks, everybody. We had a good show tonight. I was looking at the numbers here. We had 1,175 people join the show tonight. And we peaked out, we ran concurrent users of right about 200 or a little over 200 for quite a while. But I think that's a record for our show. I think our move to our YouTube format here is helping out a whole lot. And again, if you will out there, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That helps us. Hit the like button. That helps our ratings go up so people can find us. And we actually had people come into the show tonight that were on other ham radio sites. But over on the left, it lists all the different ham radio things that we're on, and it showed us on there as live, and they clicked on it, and that's how they found us tonight. So, very good. I'm going to say good night to everybody, and, hey, thanks for showing up and being with us tonight, guys. We really enjoyed it.
All right. Hey, Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, that's right. It will be next year. And man, I love that shirt. Man, oh man, I love that shirt.
Yeah, that's between that and like I said, the puzzle of my bench. It'll keep me busy New Year's Eve.
Man,
supposed to be raining here, so that'll be it.
Thanks. We'll see you later.
Take care now.
Goodbye. All right, guys. Let's see. Let's put Glenn on here with out here. Here we go.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question. It will reply. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.